Well, let's before we get into all the domestic stuff, let's talk about what's going on with this global agenda. We have this story. This is a really freaky story from timcast.com. Dutch government shoots live rounds at farmers protesting mandates. Lawmakers enacted restrictive laws to combat climate change. Dutch police opened fire using live ammunition against farmers protesting the government's mandatory restrictions and closure of some farms to meet climate goals set by the European Union. This is really fascinating. We got tons of tweets here. I'll breaking this down. Shots fired. Police said the tractor drivers attempted to drive into officers and service vehicles. I got to say, if you watch the video, that's not true. It's a tractor that just drives around. Like it pulls out and starts going down the road, and then a cop just fires at him.
The tractors don't go that fast.
Right. It's like Austin Powers.
Yeah.
You you guys remember that?
The scene with the steamroller.
Yeah, the steamroller.
Yeah.
The guy's like, no, are you kidding? Here's what's really, really crazy about this. So in the context of the Georgia Guidestones being blown up, I can't say too much because we have some journalists investigating this. But let me just say that there are some sources involved who say it appears to be a politically motivated attack. Obviously, someone went and blew up the Georgia Guidestones, what they call the monument to globalism. But let me make this point. We have a fertilizer shortage because of the war with Russia and Ukraine. We have Russia and Ukraine reducing their exports of food to neighboring nations, which is supposed to cause a global famine. And at the same time, as we're being warned about all this, at the same time, we're hearing, Germany and other countries panicking over a lack of fuel. European nations are telling their farmers to stop farming. Here's the crazier thing. We're being told we're going to get hit by rising food costs, a lower crop yield, and potential food shortages in the United States. And we're even hearing from people in the industry, they're chatting us saying farmers in the U.S. are still being paid not to farm. So what is going on with all this?
And you forgot to mention all the food processing plants that are burning down that the news isn't covering.
Well, so I mean, they're covering it. It's just not in the mainstream national cycle. Now, I will say to that point, we've questioned whether or not it's abnormal, the amount of fires. And so we got these fact checkers came after us and they were like, Timcast published fake news claiming that all these fires were happening. And our article was bad. Don't get me wrong. Like we had some errors. That's true. But we did some digging and it looks like it's slightly above average, the amount of fires.
That's normal? I saw the list. It went on and on and on. I'm like, wow. And this, I really haven't seen much on it. But
so there's tens of thousands of warehouses, tens of thousands of factories. Fires happen. What we got to be careful of is sometimes like a car crash happens near a building and then people are like, oh, what was this? But here's what I can say is even on that story, it does look like there's more fires than there have been over the past few years by a small amount. So take it for what it is. Either way, I'll say this. These fires are a news story because we're being told there's going to be a food shortage. More importantly, if these fires are happening and they are normal, isn't that grounds to tell farmers to pick up production?
Start producing. We have the same thing because of water issues in Arizona. There's a lot of fields that are fallow that you're just not putting any, you're not planting. And there's obviously a concern. We talk about water issues in Arizona, but I say if we keep handling water issues with more restrictions, we hurt the farming, and then we have a food shortage. And it sounds like they're setting us up for a food shortage.
Amazingly,
why would you tell farmers not to farm?
Is it because they don't have transport to get the food out, and they don't want rotten food?
But that's incumbent upon the farmers to figure out, not the government to come in and prevent. Right?
Farmers are so busy that they don't mess around. I'm from Iowa, which is an agriculture state originally. And if you've got farmers protesting and spending days and nights doing this, you've really pissed off the wrong people.
Well, so we can talk about fallowing fields and all that stuff and government paying farmers not to farm. But in the Netherlands, why are they this is about climate change. They're telling these farmers to reduce emissions and things like that because of climate goals. Do they not suspend these things when they're like, hey, a global famine is coming and Europe is going to starve because Ukraine's being invaded by Russia? This makes literally no sense. And then to see that the police open fire on them, it just reeks of the global agenda is collapsing. It's a climate change agenda. That's what they're doing. Joe Biden has said, he was campaigning, we're going to get off fossil fuels. Now what happens? He's shutting down oil and gas leases. He's banning fracking and other oil leases on public lands. And we just found out Joe Biden allowed 5 million barrels of our strategic reserves to be exported out of this country to China, of all places. Not just, but Europe and Asia as well. something doesn't make sense with what they're doing. And you look at all this stuff, and it really does feel like it just Joe Biden's crooked as they come.
Oh, I mean, that's a fact. We've known about this for a while. You look at the laptop, you see everything that's on that laptop, and you see evidence of dealings with our enemies, financial dealings that should have been told, by the way, before the election. But that we'll save that for another day. He never puts America first.
No, it's more like Biden family first.
Biden family first, his friends in China first, his friends in Ukraine. $58 billion of our taxpayer money has gone to Ukraine. And we have a crisis at the border. I mean, we've got families who are struggling. They can't make ends meet. They can't afford their groceries. They can't afford to put gas in their car. And we're sending our hard-earned money to Ukraine. This is insane. And then you add on top of it the left pushing these environmental mandates on us to the point of trying to, I don't know what the point is actually. Are we trying to save other animals by hurting the human race?
I kind of feel like, you see these posts from Democrats when the Ukraine war kicked off, and they were saying things like $4 a gallon is the price to pay to see Ukraine be free and things like that. You had Joe Biden say gas prices will remain high as long as it takes for Ukraine to win. I encourage all of the Democrats to run that slogan in November and in 2024. So when the voter walks up to the gas pump and they're picking up the gas pump and looking at the $5 a gallon, and then those little TVs play, and it'll be like breaking news. Joe Biden says, you got to pay for Ukraine. Keep saying it and see if you win.